everyone. This video is for the Moon Times Digest on building an altar, all within the seasonal theme of devotion. When it comes to an altar, I believe that if you gather some things that hold some spiritual value to you and you raise it up and visit this gathering of things that have some symbolism and meaning, give it some time, some energy in the form of tangible things, listening space, questions for reflection, or even just your attention on a regular basis, I believe that that is an altar. I'd love to share another way of doing an altar or having a space that is curated very intentionally, spiritually, energetically, for value, for symbolism, for soothing empowerment and manifestation of values that I want to grow into. In this digest, Tanya Lane will be sharing more about an ancestral altar. Some of the resources that I'll provide to you will be very much on how to build an altar in a space in your home that is dedicated to this purpose. Here I'd love to share something that I've been doing for a while now in various iterations, and that's an altar box. This is the one that I will be going into shortly. Of course, it has lots of different art on it for a curated purpose, and I'm excited to share more about it with y'all and what's in it, as everything in here is curated very specifically to manifest and cultivate loving, reliable, intimate community. Being new in Colorado still, in the midst of a pandemic, it's been interesting and challenging to build community as it tends to be when we move to new places. I have an altar box to call forth meaning, symbolism, and resources to help me center on cultivating the best, most loving, meaningful, intentional community that I can. People choose to have an altar for various reasons, to honor ancestors, as you will see in some of the resources. But we can also use altars and feed altars and give altars energy for our own creativity, for love, for compassion, for various purposes that we are wanting to leverage forces beyond us to help us cultivate in our lives. So I'm really excited to share more about this. It's another way of practicing altar work or leveraging tangible things to invoke deeper meaning, to invoke ancestral or elemental energies into our own cultivation of values or ways of being, and also to cultivate healing for ourselves and others. I keep my box elevated on a shelf where I can see it if I look up. One might not think when they see it that it's an altar, but I know that it is, and I put things on the front of the box, which I've refreshed for various purposes. For example, when I first started this box, it was more for soothing, for self-soothing, for emotional regulation. Then it transformed into more of an empowerment box, an altar for recognizing and calling forth my own divine power through the various forces that I have access to. And now it's a box that cultivates community and reminds me of the people in my life whom I love, the people who have been in my life, who have passed, whom I look up to in relation to how they cultivated community. And so it's transformed, and I also refresh the front of the box with different pieces of art that relate to the thing that I'm dedicating my box to. So it's evolved over the years. When I do decide to approach this collection of items, I am very intentional about it. I clear out my desk, I put my box there, I take note of it, I engage with it mindfully as if I'm almost seeing it for the first time. When I open it, I'm very intentional with which items I engage with. Sometimes I'll take everything out and lay it out and notice how I feel with it. I'll light a candle that's in it. I'll pour some water in a bowl that's in it. I'll smell and taste sometimes if I have some fresh fruit in here, or visited this box recently and put a piece of candy or something in here. Everything in this box is meant to engage me sensorially, and there are various elements from earth, fire, water, air, and spirit that are representative in here, much like an altar itself. So here, I'll share a little bit more about my box so as to offer some resources and inspiration if it lands. On the front, I have some very intentionally curated art that means something to me as it relates to cultivating intentional, loving, and equal community where we see each other's power, each other's strengths. We actively recognize that with affirmation, with acknowledgement, with respect. I also really love this, which was very much inspired by the phases of the moon, but also related to sisterhood and honoring each other in our various phases of life. I put this circle here because I love the idea and the symbolism of circle in community. Again, being equal. In my work in gathering community circle, I try to be very sensitive and aware of that while also making space equally for folks to share and be heard and be seen. And so just this idea of unity and a circle, equality, being seen and heard equally is important to me. Here I have find new gold always, which feels really important in long-term relationships, to consistently be seeing each other in new ways, honoring growth, honoring things that surprise us about one another. While we may feel like we know people, there are so many things that we just will never know and don't know. And honoring that space in between feels really important, certainly as I found in my long-term relationships. On the back here, there is a butterfly. There's something about the freeness and flutteriness of a butterfly that definitely reminds me of sociability and freedom. I recognize how much devotion relationships take to cultivate and feed and nourish, and acknowledging conflict as it comes up and allowing conflict to be a space for deepening and repair. It takes a lot of devotion. This is a piece that has the affirmation, I can leverage my sensitivity as a superpower. I think it takes a great degree of sensitivity to be a loving community member, to be empathetic and compassionate, to be self-aware and to be aware of one's own emotions and somatic sensations so that we can also know what our boundaries are in community, being sensitive both to others and ourselves. This is a scarf that my Aunt Lynn gave me. She is someone who I see as super social, loving people, very much a community member. She contributes a lot to the South African potlucks and picnics that happen in San Jose, California, and I just love seeing how she contributes her gifts of culinary expertise and flavor and humor and joy and fun to those experiences. So in here are various things which I'll go over shortly. This is a gift that my friend Nadia made, NY. It's a ceramic bowl. I love it so much. I often use this as my water bowl in my water element. So I'll pour a little bit of water here as we go through this. This is a gift that my friend Lauren gave to me. It very much represents the fire element and it's just got such a beautiful fragrance to it. It makes this entire box smell so good every time I open it. So I'll light it up right now. I have some Palo Santo here. I've been holding on to this stick for a while. I'll light a bit of it now as my air element. It smells really good as well as I engage my senses here already. I feel very present. I feel very excited to share the wonderful curated contents of this. This is a Shiva Lingam. It is a tantric representation of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. I got this during my yoga teacher training. I loved all the things that I had learned about yoga philosophy, history, and my own culture as a South Asian. I've always felt a lot of resonance with the deity of Shiva, and the Shiva Lingam felt very important. I love its representation of duality. This is also a crystal from my yoga teacher training. I put this in here because we went around on our graduation ceremony and each person in my cohort blessed this crystal with such beautiful affirmations, and I have so much fondness in my heart for this crystal as it represents a really intentional circle of beautiful women, of us learning together, even through a pandemic last year. There's some other crystals in here, rose quartz, of course, symbolizing love. Sometimes it's hard to be in community. Sometimes it's hard to navigate various energies and personalities, and it's very easy to steer away from love as a form of protection, to steer away from love, to not be open and vulnerable. But I really want to remember that love is really the way to be peaceful, authentic, in community, and I'm still learning truly what that means. So I have this in here. This was a gift from my Uncle Vani. He gifted these little Buddhas to a few of us in our family circle group. He's a lot of fun. I'm so grateful that my parents have these family friends in their lives. After we immigrated to the United States from South Africa, it was hard for all of us to adjust. And they find a lot of joy and celebration with my uncle and their friends, and it just means a lot to me, and I love having this piece here. It's also just beautiful. It gives me so much peace. A couple other things that I'd like to show here. This was a gift from my friend Utemia. She is a close friend here in Denver, which feels really good. I'm so grateful to have at least a few really good friends here in Colorado in this new space that we're in, and I really cherish their whole family. Here I have actually some Marijuana Anonymous chips. I hope to share more about my journey here with this, but for now I do keep this in here to remind myself that I love connecting with people vulnerably and authentically without necessarily being centered around a substance, whether it be cannabis or alcohol, and I do want to prioritize that more. There are a few other things in here, but I'd love to move on to a couple things here because there's a lot of really meaningful things in here for me in relation to community. This is a photo of my grandfather, Chotu Dada. He passed, if I may even say, the best way one can pass. He chose to pass after so many people who meant a lot to him got to see him and got to say goodbye. Community really came forward and rallied for our family. It was just so beautiful to see that they were abundant in connections and community. That really taught me the meaning of, one, having that community in such an important time of life, and that could be death or various other milestones that may come before that. And I was just so grateful that he was blessed with such a rich community. He was very also prioritizing of that. And so he was very much about respect and honoring our connections. And so I keep a picture of him in here. There's some various other things here that emphasize who I want to be in community. This I'll share here. It's a little picture of a stuffed bunny. The stuffed bunny was called Snuggles. My uncle Virukaka gave Snuggles to me when I immigrated here to the US. I realized that a lot of this cultivation of intentional community does relate to immigration trauma. Part of moving here involved completely changing my sense of community, even though it was many years ago now. I realized in the year of 2020, unresolved feelings and grief has come up. Snuggles was a very transitionary object for me, and I had it probably until I was 19 or 20 until I finally donated it. And I want some representation of it because I like to see some of my fears and anxieties that I probably carried as a 7-year-old moving here that sometimes manifest in me today as my inner child, to have Snuggles with her. And the last thing I'll share is again related to my immigration. I remember spending a lot of time alone in my room when I moved here, writing love notes to my family, poetry of how much I'm longing and missing my family in South Africa. It was the first time I spent so much time alone, and it was just because my nuclear family and I moved here. I remember my mom told me to draw and write in a nightmare journal because I was experiencing a lot of nightmares. Even just looking at this, I remember the exact space that I was in. It was part of a wellness, healing and justice jam with Yes World. And it was such a healing experience, and that energy I still have within me, and this is a visual representation of that gathering. Of course, people are crying because I love to cry. The last thing I'll share is a gift from my mother. This is a Swatch watch that she bought for herself when she probably first started working as a young adult. And she gave this to me when I was in a car accident. That was actually the start of me reassessing my life and my mission and my life's work. I was working at a corporate job and just wasn't fully satisfied there. I was busying myself from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. and fell asleep on the road. I turned 24, I believe, in a wheelchair recovering from that accident, and my mother gave me this watch for my 24th birthday. And while the band broke off, I still love it so much, and it means a lot to me. It's a really important reminder of the love and nurturance that my family gave to me in my recovery there. And that's what's in my box for now, hopefully to incite some ideas as to the types of meaningfulness and symbolism that you may put in your altar box or on your altar if you choose to create one. If it works for you, then it works for you. And your relationship and our own relationship with whatever it is that is divine to us is our own personal relationship, and that's okay. And that's what's so delicious and meaningful about it. If it resonates with you, if it works for you, if you feel nourished by it, if you feel challenged by it simultaneously, then that is profound and meaningful, and why not? Thank you so much for watching this. I hope it was helpful in any which way. Thanks again for tuning into Moon Times. Much love, y'all. Peace.